Welcome, listeners, to Through the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Joe of the Big Friendly in Oklahoma City. Thank you for making time for us, Joe. We appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out.
And I know I kind of gave your name in a little bit of an intro, but can you tell us your role in what you do here at the Big Friendly?
I am one of two people that run the brewery. My brother Will runs the back of house, and then I take care of everything else. Front of house, and we meet in the middle quite often. I actually office in the back of the house, so we can communicate on things related to recipe formation or the way that a beer is tasting, and just collaborate on different ideas that we need to collaborate on. But yeah, I'm mainly focused on the business side of running the brewery.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. I love that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we like to start off with, where do you call home?
Oklahoma City is where I call home.
Born and raised?
No, I actually moved out here in 2008, and my whole family is from California, and so over the course of 15 years, we found ourselves here. So my sister, who works here too, she moved here in 1999, and then my parents moved in 2004. I moved in 2007, my brother in 2010, and one of the reasons why we started brewing was because we couldn't find the quality of beer that we were used to here in Oklahoma. When I moved in 2007, there was one brewery in the whole state.
Oh, wow.
One full-strength brewery. There was, Low Point brew pubs here, kind of near beer to me, but Chalk Brewing was the only brewery in the whole state at the time. And so we couldn't find something like a West Coast IPA here, even distributed from out of state. And so we just decided to start brewing together within a month of him moving here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he had started brewing in San Diego before he moved here, and so we just decided to continue the hobby together.
Gotcha.
It actually was there was four of us. So I have another sister. Okay. We have another sister who lives in North Texas, and so she moved from California through Arizona into North Texas. She's about 3 hours from here, so it's the four of us kids with our parents, and we've all just kind of ended up out here.
She started the migration.
Yeah, somewhat intentionally. It's kind of like this reverse migration, reverse Dust Bowl, so to speak. Like we're from California, and we're leaving.
Right.
Leaving
we just
California.
Came from Lubbock. They call it the Dust Bowl.
Or the Dust Coast.
The Dust Coast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their thing.
And it's Dust Bowl Brewing in Turlock, California.
Yeah, it's in California.
Her parents worked there for a little bit.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So there's Dust Bowl Brewing.
Yeah, Dust Bowl.
I've had their beer.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah.
And actually, I was born in Salinas, California, which is where John Steinbeck was born and lived and wrote The Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought about that because I was born a mile from where he was born, and I ended up in Oklahoma, which where the story began.
So wild.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Some unconscious inspiration then.
Yeah, I think so.
What was life like growing up in California?
I loved it. Salinas is a fairly small town for California, near the coast. And I was there for 10 years. I go back to visit because I like Alvarado Street brewing. I like the IPAs they make. But I'm actually going to be back there in a couple days. But
nice.
We moved to the mountains when I was 10, and so my experience of California was mostly of the mountains through high school, and then I moved to San Diego for college. Okay. And I had a great experience. I really did love the mountains. The beach was a place that I appreciate, but it wasn't a spot that I really loved living by consistently. I'm not a beach goer that much.
Okay, I was about to ask if you did the holy trinity of skate, surf, and snow in California.
I did snow. I did snowboarding.
Yeah.
But I never got into surfing, and I would fall off the skateboard too much, and I'm in pretty low risk, so
Gotcha.
I stopped doing that too. But I think that San Diego for me was a good experience, except that a lot of the city there is transient in nature, and so
Yeah.
people that live there are not from there, and so it was very difficult for me to make friends that stayed.
Right.
And
Friend group is always changing.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
great people there, but most of the time you would meet someone that you vibed with and you'd hang out, and then they'd be gone in a couple of years back to where they came from because the cost of living was too high, or there was
Yeah.
something that was just getting in the way of the quality of life.
Right.
And so eventually that caught up to me. And visiting here in Oklahoma, people here have said, why in the world would you move from San Diego to Oklahoma City? And it was pretty clear to me because I experienced San Diego and I love visiting a place like that. But to me, life here was just a lot easier in many ways.
Yeah.
So
I would have asked the exact same question because I moved from Texas in the South to the Pacific Northwest, so I would have asked the exact same question.
yeah,
So,
I think that in San Diego, people romanticize the idea of living there because of the beach and because the weather's perfect. And so there is a romantic relationship with the city. And so most people that move there are there for the secondary reasons of life in a city, which is the amenities the city has to offer. And
great beer.
yeah, like great beer or surfing or whatever that may be. And they'll date the city, but they'll never marry it. And so
Gotcha.
That's a good
you
way
kind
to
of get
put it.
this feeling
Yeah.
that they're dating you too.
Right.
And they're not there for you, they're there for these different hobbies.
I've never heard it said like that, but it makes so much sense. Yeah.
And so, like, to me, here, it's like there was nothing to do back then when I moved in 2007. But since there's nothing to do, people just hang out with people, and their skill becomes interacting with people, and relationship is just a little more important than I felt like overall the culture there. Like I said, there's great people there and people that care about other
Right.
people, but I felt more like it was secondary to why people were there rather than the primary reason.
Yeah.
And so here, like I said, nothing to do, so you just hang out with other people at their house, which you couldn't even really afford a house
Right.
in San Diego to hang out with other people. So you're going out, fighting traffic, you're
Large bills
yeah,
at
you're
restaurants
paying
and tips.
to hang out with these
Yeah.
people, and it just becomes not sustainable at a certain point. You're working a couple of jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I doing? I can come visit here for 2 weeks out of the year and be more happy living a slower paced life in a city where the cost of living is lower, where they're more friendly to businesses.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the really cool things that came of it was while you're here, there was one brewery in the whole state. And so there was a very small craft beer community that was forming. And there was no coffee shops here that were, not even a Starbucks was here when I moved here.
Wow.
Wow.
So if you wanted to do something and you were really passionate about something like coffee or beer or food, you could really engage in that in a way that you couldn't in Southern California. And you not only could start something, but you could help form the culture around that something.
Right.
Yeah.
Where if I got into brewing in San Diego, it would have been very competitive from a business standpoint, from a quality standpoint, and it's hard to stand out in that type of environment. Where here, man, it's getting bigger now, but when I first moved here and first got into brewing, we were just welcomed into that community with open arms.
Yeah.
And it's a community that is very accepting of everybody and very hospitable and giving, and we just loved that about the craft beer community, and it still is. It still is that way. It's just a little bit bigger now
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
You had
definitely.
strong community and large community investment, which is what you find
Yeah.
in places that people get to hang out and be with each other. And I would say have less distraction too. And also, it's interesting to hear that it was kind of like a land of opportunity. I mean, you've been here now, 17 years or more, and you saw this place go from one brewery to now there's many. And not only
There's a
that,
lot,
but
yeah.
food places, restaurants, cool cuisine, and coffee shops. So and the community is only going to, if everybody's there wanting to be a part of it, going to support it. Whereas in a much bigger
Yeah.
city, it's super easy to say, oh, let's just keep trying the newest things, and then you kind of like leave it in the past of just like, oh yeah, that place was good, or that was cool that one time.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. So what did you go to school for in San Diego?
Business.
Business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a job right outside of school, or what did you do with that degree?
Honestly, I didn't even know what I wanted to do after I graduated. And so for me,
It's a pretty honest answer.
Yeah.
I didn't know why I went to school. You know, I'm like looking back thinking, why did I do that? Why did I get in all this debt? But, you know, I got my business degree and I got into sales because it just kind of was this neutral space where, I don't know, I wouldn't want to do that now, but that's what I did. I got into sales and then eventually into real estate.
What did your siblings and your parents do that, I don't know if that influenced you and what you did? I don't know.
Did they all go to college?
No,
Okay.
no, my older sister was the first to graduate in our family from college. And then I came along, 2 years after graduated. She works for the city of Plano in Texas in health. And, of course, my brother and I work here. Actually, a lot of our family works here too.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
My
So family-run business.
sister works here. My niece works here. My parents pick up shifts occasionally. But yeah, that's
Very cool. I just didn't know because sometimes like I had like family influences of what I did, so I didn't know if business was a family thing or if it was just a general. So okay,
No, I
that
just
makes
think that
sense.
it was kind of something that resonated with me, and so I think I started my own business in real estate in 2001.
Okay, they're in California.
2002,
Yeah.
in California. And then when I got out here, I was going to continue in real estate, but it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel, there was not, I guess the best way to explain it was a path of peace. And I didn't feel peace on that path anymore. It's
Right.
kind of like the peace was gone. And so I shifted actually to working for FedEx as a delivery driver for a little while. It gave me a lot of flexibility. I was homebrewing a lot. I was actually volunteering at Coop Ale Works, which is one of the bigger breweries in the state at the moment. And then I started working for a nonprofit. Coop offered me it was a part-time job. They offered me a full-time job. I said no because I wanted to kind of figure something out on my own.
Yeah, you're finding your own way.
Yeah, and then worked for a nonprofit for a while in community development, and then I had this idea to start a beer bus in 2014.
Yeah, can you talk us through how that? So you're home brewing with your brother and maybe the rest of your family, or just your brother?
Just my brother.
Just your brother, and then how did you see a need for it, or was it just a side job? Like, talk us through that idea.
As I was working for this nonprofit, I saw how hard it was to survive as a nonprofit because you're basically a beggar in this culture where you have to ask for someone to support you.
Right.
And a lot of these individuals or people that have resources want you to prove that what you're doing matters or prove the results before you actually engage in what to get funding. You have to prove it's going to work before you actually engage in what you're set out to do. Anyways, I'm thinking like, I don't want to live that way. I want to try and create my own path and support, like self-support. So I was like, how can I start a business that would self-support me in the lifestyle that I want to pursue? And so I was always trying to think of different ideas. Well, being in the beer world, brewing and engaged in that community, I would go to these different events, and there was these different street festivals where I would see food trucks selling food, and at the same event I would see breweries selling beer at tents. And so I was thinking, well, there's licensing or it's legal to sell beer at these events. What if there was a food truck that sold beer at these events? And so I started looking into it, and a friend of mine, one of the owners of Coop Ale Works, he walked me through exactly how to get the licensing to sell beer at these events. And so I just kept thinking through it, ended up buying a school bus, and built out the inside to look like a tap room. And so people could hang out inside the bus while they were at this, any given event, whether it's a private event or a public event, and then have taps on the outside of the bus where we interact with people that are walking by and sell beer, draft beer,
nice.
To people that might be walking by. So early on, we opened in October of 2015, and it was very well received.
Okay. Yeah. Where did you pop up shop? Like the bus, you can go anywhere. So where all did you go with it?
The very first event we did was at a coffee shop in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
I know where that is.
Called Hoboken. Yeah. And we, I think, came out for maybe their anniversary party or something like that. We could basically go anywhere we wanted if we had the proper licensing. The licensing back then was different than it is now. But we were selling Low Point beer.
Yeah.
And so, was considered a non-intoxicating beverage, which it's a 4% ABV beer.
Okay.
3.2 by weight. But in the law, it was considered non-intoxicating, so it wasn't regulated by the Able Commission. It was regulated by the Tax Commission, and so you just had to obtain licensing, and you can go pop up really anywhere. But early on, we would do different events that were like street festivals, farmers markets, house parties, weddings, those types of things. And that's grown over the years as we've become more known. And of course, now we're a brewery, but yeah, we would just kind of show up at spots we were invited to and sell beer that was from Oklahoma. So we would sell beer from Coop Ale Works and Prairie Artisan Ales and Elk Valley, which no longer is around.
So kind of bottle shop-esque type of thing where you're selling other people. Did you sell any of y'all's own homebrew?
We did not.
Okay.
We did not.
Gotcha.
Although we did brew beer at Coop Ale Works on their test batch system, and sometimes that beer that we brewed at their facility would end up on the bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So you just have kegs from locally sourced beer breweries, and you sell that. Very cool.
Which is great because it's grassroots.
Yeah.
You're showcasing what is around to people in a strong community who may or may not know.
Right.
And you guys get to show up and be the face of it and kind of interact and say, hey, this is from here, and these are these people that you can go and meet.
Yeah, and to me, back then, I would always say that we're spreading the gospel of craft beer. And because we'd end up in these small towns mostly, and no one had ever even interacted with craft beer. And so it's just a lot of, where's the Bud Light, You got any Coors? And so at that moment, I could introduce them to something that was a better version of what they drank, and was made here in Oklahoma. And so it kind of became bridging the gap between where they were in their beer journey and where, opening their eyes to see what was around them and how they could support local business as well. And it was all beer from Oklahoma, so.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Where did this, I see this a lot from what you've been saying, is this importance of community and kind of having an impact, but getting involved and showing people that these things that we have here are important keeping around. Where did that start for you? I'm not trying to bring it way back, but it seems like from every bit from your growing up to where you are now at the Big Friendly, that's always been your driving factor.
Community.
Probably from my parents, I would say. I don't know. I think that I've always had a high value of people and interacting with people, and how, going back to the city, the substance of a city is its people, and it's not what the city offers related to amenities, because a city is not a city without people. A neighborhood is not a neighborhood without people. A brewery is not a brewery without people. A home is not a home without people. So people are the living and the driving force that allows a city to be alive. It's not the things that we seek that the city offers, But I feel like a lot of times we get that backwards,
Yes.
Yeah.
and we pursue those things rather than what's most important, and it's people. And so I don't know.
You also grew up in a big family. I can understand, like, community is big for me as someone who grew up in a big family. So I can see that too, of like being able to connect with people, and you learned how to share and be around people. So yeah, I can see that connection too, maybe like being around big families.
Yeah,
I figured probably too, it ties into your name. So the Big Friendly.
that's right.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask, I didn't want to, that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but like how did the Big Friendly, the name for it
So
come
that
to
was the name
be?
of the beer bus.
Okay, I was going to ask if it
So
was
that was
still.
the name of the business.
Okay.
It was the Big Friendly. So we're right in line as far as the timeline. When I moved here in 2007, the state was celebrating their 100-year anniversary. And to celebrate that, the Chamber of Commerce here in Oklahoma City deemed Oklahoma the Big Friendly.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
And I think they also said Oklahoma City is the Big Friendly. So there was this promotion that they were doing. And so when I was here, that first year, I was thinking, you know what, that really resonates with me. I agree with that because the people that I interact with are pretty friendly here. You know, it's just like going back to people being skilled in relationship. You know, outside of like what people's political views are and like the things that we can disagree on, just human to human interaction, people were friendly here.
Yeah.
And so I started to notice that. At the time also, the New Orleans NBA team had
Okay.
moved here for 1
Yeah.
year because of Katrina, I think
Yeah.
it was. And so there was that? I might be getting this mixed up, but there was articles in the newspaper in the first few years. Maybe it was when Seattle's team moved here,
Yeah.
where they were quoting or they were saying Oklahoma City, the Big Friendly, or Durant would say something about the Big Friendly, and so it was just I'm like that is something that I feel is true.
Yeah.
Like the Big Apple or the Big Easy, Oklahoma City is the Big Friendly. And so I just went and registered the name with the Secretary of State like 3 years before we even opened the business,
Oh, wow.
just as something beer related, because I felt like maybe we'd open something beer related at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think 3 years later, started the beer bus, and it just fit because the bus was big and friendly.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're bringing
Beer.
good news
Yeah.
of
Craft beer.
craft beer to
Yeah.
the people, and I feel like that carried over to the brewery and tap room.
Yeah, you get to bring some community and something of home around to everybody to feel comfortable.
Yeah, I love that so much. Do you remember your first craft beer experience? It's probably California, as I'm assuming.
I do. I was with my brother. He had moved from Northern California to live with me in San Diego, and we ended up going out to a brewery in Alpine, California called Alpine. And there's this little, I don't know how big it was, very small lobby area. It wasn't like a sit-down tap room. It's a walk-up. You can just order a pint and stand there and drink a pint of beer and take
Interesting.
growlers to go.
Oh,
Okay.
Gotcha.
And so we went out there one day, and it was about 20 minutes from where we lived, and I ordered a Nelson IPA, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this has so much flavor. And I'm sure we took home 2 or 3 growlers that day and ended up going back, for more. But that was kind of the first time craft beer was highlighted. But I think before that it was beers like Newcastle,
Yeah.
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 Stella, and
Yeah.
Heineken, and we had moved beyond the domestic light beer which I'm not above these days either.
Yeah.
You know, like I still will drink that if it's
Yeah.
an option. That
Yeah, especially when it's like 106 out.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great. It's a nice, refreshing beer, but if there's a local option, I'll drink that
Right.
10 out of 10 times. You know, so
Nice.
Totally. Yeah. Who started the homebrew? Was it you or your brother?
my brother started homebrewing in San Diego with a few of his friends, and they were doing that for I don't know how long, maybe 6 months or a year before he moved here.
Gotcha.
So
Okay,
he moved
gotcha.
here out 3 years after I had moved here, and then we decided to homebrew because, like I said before,
Really?
because we couldn't find beer that we liked, but also it was kind of this good opportunity for us to hang out. Because if you're brewing together, you're hanging out, you're having lots of conversations, and you're
Yeah, a
drinking.
brew day is not a short day.
No, and
Yeah.
it's fun. You're drinking beer, you know, together. And so when we started brewing, we did 2 extract batches, and we ended up walking into Coop Ale Works in their first year of business in 2009 because we had tasted a test batch of a West Coast IPA that they made, and it wasn't out in the market yet. So we walked in there just to see what the deal was with Coop. And so we walk in, and there's 2 guys there. One of them is Chase Healy, who was the head brewer for Coop at the time. You guys know who that is? Okay,
No.
He started Prairie Artisan Ales
Okay.
and sold that, and now he's Solera,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
American Slayer.
American Slayer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well then we
That
do.
makes sense.
Sorry,
We
I
know-
never associated
we
the
know
name.
his work.
It's probably DJ Mixed Culture that Matt
Yes.
is always on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there.
So we've
About-
been to all of those places, yes,
Yeah.
but have never met him.
Yeah, so he was there, and then Blake Jarlem, who's a good friend of ours, who's still there. He's actually the head brewer there now. He's one of the owners there now. And,
nice.
so he and Chase were there. They invited us in. We were there for probably 2 or 3 hours, just hanging out and talking about our love of beer. And from there, it just kind of propelled us into that community where they invited us to come back and brew with them a couple weeks later. Actually, Blake came over to my sister's house a week later and walked us through all grain brewing. And
Oh, nice.
Wow.
so that just kind of like a testament to like meeting somebody who you don't know in Oklahoma, and then a week later, that person is at your house hanging out with you for a brew day, and just kind of guiding us through how to all grain brew. And I don't know that a situation like that would have happened in California.
Probably not. Yeah.
Walking into a random brewery and that
Yeah, that person
brewer,
coming
that
to go
person's
to
coming to your house
homebrew day.
a week later.
Yeah,
But
that's amazing.
it happened, and then from that point, they're just like, hey, come in whenever you want. If you want to help clean kegs or clean tanks, or watch the boil for me, eventually that led into me being there every week for 3 to 5 hours, walking out with a bag of 2-row and some hops and
Oh,
a
nice.
flask of yeast, and just brewing
Brewing at
every
home.
single week
Yeah.
with ingredients that were kind of given in exchange for my time at the brewery, and also QC kegs or QC cans, and
Yeah.
and so that became a weekly rhythm for me, just going to the brewery, taking home grain, brewing with my brother, and our learning curve really accelerated because of how much we were brewing, and it was kind of nice because we didn't have to pay for it. It can get
Yeah.
expensive.
Other than your time, it was
Yeah.
it was
You
cheap
got some
and easy.
good ingredients too. It sounds like I don't know if many people can get some of those same ingredients on their own as a home brewer, so that surely helped.
Yeah, well, the consistency for sure.
Yeah.
And it's also just a staple too of long has the craft beer community been about education and helping one another out. And I know it can vary from city to city. I've seen it myself, but it is always great to when somebody's just wanting to learn information. Brewers love teaching and just love being there in the process. It's this combination of science and kind of like blue collar physical work that I don't know. It makes it easy. I do it for people all the time or have done it, and I'm always just excited to like, thanks for being here. And I'm like, no, I love this. Like it can be a 50-barrel system, it could be a 5-gallon system. I just like being a part of it. So it's cool to see that was true for y'all too as well.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. So y'all you're home brewing, you start the bus. So talk us through that progression of opening the bus, the Big Friendly, and not really selling your home brew, but how did y'all get to then the moment of, hey, we should actually do this and open something?
Yeah, so Will was working at Coop as their lead brewer, and he had ended up working there for about 6 years. And then I had started the Big Friendly beer bus, and that was going pretty well. I mean, the brand was being well received, and the laws, we got some clues into the laws changing to where they would allow taproom sales direct to your patrons,
consumer.
Oh, nice.
which was not the case before October of 2018.
Okay.
And so those laws ended up changing to where you didn't have to just wholesale beer, you could sell it retail. And so Coop, Will's working at Coop, and he's getting a lot of really good experience. And we just had these conversations probably since 2013. Hey, maybe we could do this one day. But it never was something we were striving in. And then in 2016, a friend of ours whose family was doing a housing development called the Wheeler District, he asked me if we wanted to open a brewery and tap room in the development. And
Oh, nice.
So the development actually was positioned just across the tree line from where both my brother and I owned property. And so that development is where we're sitting right now.
Right.
So this was vacant land in 2016.
Yeah.
The only building that was here is the building.
Is the Taco
Is
Nation.
the taco shop.
But it wasn't
yeah.
a taco shop before?
No, it was the old terminal building for it was an airport here.
Okay.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
called the Downtown Air Park. And so they had this big vision to develop all of the land here. And for us, the idea of being right in the middle of a new urbanism type neighborhood within walking distance of where we currently live was very appealing to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so in 2016, we started the process of planning, which lot we were going to go on and how we would fit into the development. And that was a 4-year process. So, going through different architectural plans, design plans, and then the construction process was about 15 months. Just took a lot longer than we thought. And then
As every construction project does.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Every
so,
business plan and construction project. But the tap room is immaculate.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah,
we'll have photos to show.
Yeah, it was something that we were involved with, all the details, the layout, and the tap room of the brewery and how those interacted with each other. And in 2020,
The best time to open a brewery.
Yeah, when everything coalesced and seemed life was great.
yeah, March of 2020, all of the restaurants and breweries and bars shut down for about a month, and we were like, do we really want to do this? But we were already in so far
Yeah.
on it that there was really no going back at that point. But we did buy a single head canning line just in case we needed to do only to-go beer. And then we opened in November of 2020,
Okay.
which was not the most ideal time to open, but we did, and we had a pretty good response. And we were at 50% occupancy, I think, for several months. But we survived, and we've had a really good response.
Did the city try to help you?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I just know, from where we were at, I think a lot of businesses were frustrated because things were up in the air, but businesses still had, like rents and mortgages to pay, weren't having any income coming in, weren't able to produce and sell product. And I know a lot of businesses died during COVID. Do you feel Oklahoma City represented that well?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's not anything political. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did, and there was a lot of other assistance that was out there that we took advantage of that kind of helped us in our first 2 years of being open. And I feel like now, I'm not to jump ahead, but now we are seeing good growth like year over year, and there's more and more people that find out about us, whether it's they come and visit and they love the location. We're pretty family friendly. There's a playground across the street for kids. See a lot of families here. We do attract the craft beer lovers as well. And we've had a good response to the product that we put out. And we try to be really hospitable and friendly to people that come to the space.
It helps when the name is big friendly too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So when y'all opened, so what I was going to ask earlier was the house. Was there people that were living in the development around y'all? I know it looks like it's growing on either side as well, but at the time were there people living nearby?
Yes. So when we opened, it was very early on in the development. There was probably 20 houses with people living in them. Now there's probably 150 houses. But not only that, there's a big commercial building across the street that is completely occupied. It's a 3-story building. And then there's live workspaces on the opposite side of our space. We're positioned kind of right in the middle of the development. You know, if they're able to fully develop it down to the river across Western, we're going to be hopefully positioned as kind of like the neighborhood pub.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this is town, like the middle of I guess you could call it town center here.
That's what we felt like driving in. It reminded us of a place back in the Pacific Northwest. Like we drove in, we're like, oh, this is where you can like park and walk around and go to a couple different places and enjoy the community.
So industrial. There's a lot of good landscaping, the parks for the kids to play at, which makes it feel open and friendly. It's not just like, oh, I'm in a business area.
Right, and the design is very much focused on walkability and bikeability. And for instance, all the mail room, everyone has to go to the mail room for their mail. No one has mail boxes, and the mail room is located inside the taco shop, which is across the street. So everyone, if they want to get their mail, they've got to walk to that mail room to get their mail, and hopefully they stop by for a beer on the way to get mail or on the way back from getting mail.
I know we would.
Absolutely. I mean, when I lived in St. Louis, I had to go through a calzone shop that sold beer too, and I would get a calzone and a beer on my way up every single night. So it makes sense if you're walking by it. Yeah, for sure. I love on the top of it, we could literally, as we're driving down the street, our first time here, like the Big Friendly is in letters on top. Like I don't even know how y'all did it. It's like out of metal or something, but it's different than regular signage. It very much stands out in the backdrop of the community as well. Like you can see it and find it very easily.
Yeah, there's been people that have moved here just because there's a brewery in the community. Yeah. Not even knowing like what our beer is like, but just knowing that they're going to be within a few minute walk of the tap room.
Yeah, and something to have a drink at.
Yeah.
So how do you guys do your kind of, I would say like your ideology behind the beer that you produce and design? And I also see you have tons of bottles of wine on the counter, and I'm assuming it's natural wine. Are there some on there or local?
It's something that my brother is curating.
Oh, okay,
and he's very into wine, and we can sell wine on premise.
Nice.
And so he's recently kind of curated that.
Nice.
What's available. I think there's like 12 or 14 different options there. So we also have wine on draft.
Gotcha.
Which we don't make.
It just comes in, kegs.
So, but our ideology on beer and how's that formed? I think part of it is our roots and where we're from, but most of it is what we like to drink. So, I'd say the 3 main beers we make would be lager, pilsner, IPA, and Saison farmhouse style. So, and then outside of that, we do make stout, like imperial stout, and fruit beers, which are heavily fruited. So we have a peach beer on right now that's 10 pounds per gallon of peaches.
Yeah.
And so
that's awesome.
Amazing.
Heavily fruited, and it's focused primarily on the fruit and the flavor of the fruit. But, we always we go in seasons with fruit. So we've got about 6 or 8 different fruits we focus on right now. And we don't we only make them once a year, and so we'll bring those back around the next year.
Yeah.
It might have a different base, but the fruit really is kind of overwhelming whatever base we put the fruit on. It's kind of a crowd pleaser, a beer for everyone, a beer for non-beer drinkers.
Yeah.
But what we make the most of would be IPA, lager, and saison.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
very cool. And you won some awards recently, correct?
We did.
Yeah, you wanted to share those?
Yeah. We're 3 years old, 3.5 years old, and we entered the Great American Beer Festival, the competition, a couple years ago, and we didn't really have high expectations. We really wanted to just kind of see where we stacked up and get some feedback. And we never did competitions as home brewers, but we just thought that as a small brewery, if there's a chance that we could win something, it would be a big deal for us if we want to get people to the tap room. So we entered some beer and started, the day of the awards, we were just hanging. I was at my house with my family and started getting text messages from people that were at the competition. One of our good friends, Blake, who actually is the guy from Coop that he's the head brewer now, he just sent me like a emoji of a gold medal.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome. What a good way to find
And
out.
I was like,
What?
what? And
Can you
what
explain
does
more,
it- What does
please?
this mean? And then he sent the screenshot of like, they put, your name, the brewery up on the screen and what it was for. And so we won gold for our Petite Saison. And then we were kind of like, wow, that's cool, and then like 10 minutes later, he sends another silver medal emoji. And I was like, no way, like
2 medals.
this
Yeah.
is crazy. And so I get on the phone with my brother who's getting the same text messages. I'm like, wow, dude, like this is so cool,
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really affirming. It's not that you guys
Yeah.
didn't lack confidence, but knowing that you can have all these people sit and taste your beer and give you notes and say, hey, this is fantastic, has got to be really self-boosting.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And, it was emotional, especially that first time, because it just came out of nowhere. And then that translated into winning Brewery of the Year for our barrel size and production size. And then we're like, well, let's enter beer next year, which was 2023. And we ended up going last year to GABF, and the main thing was going to the award ceremony, and we ended up winning a few more medals and Brewery of the Year again. Which I can't explain it, but
I'm like, I always get emotional, but I'm like tearing up for you. Like that's so incredible to like open something that you all have talked about and you've worked so hard for, and to enter and not expect anything, and then to win those things, and then again come back the next year and win again. Like that's incredible. You're in Oklahoma, like.
Yeah, especially when this business is
Yeah.
super hardworking, intensive, passion, and ambition. So you put a lot of yourself out there. We say this every podcast. I think it is, everybody that gets involved in this, I think, tries to put as much as their self into what they do and showcase that for others. And so winning awards is reaffirming just as much as having people in your tap room saying, this is great, we love coming here. It's like having that, I think, gives you fire in life to be like, okay, I'm on the right track. Like this wasn't just some crazy hobby,
yeah, it is kind of cool. And honestly, there is so much good beer being made. That was kind of my main hesitation to being like, yeah, we're going to win, like having confidence that we're going to win. Like there's a chance that we're going to win, but really like there's just as good, if not better, beer being made, depending on the styles that are out there, right here in Oklahoma. So like, I'm just thinking like someone's going to win someday.
Yep.
Someone's going to win someday with the quality of beer that's being made here. And it just happened to be that we won, one of the biggest awards you can win in the beer world. And I was just kind of like, wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But it happened, and here we are, and we're thankful for it. I think that's probably the best way to describe it is grateful that we were able to win it, and that in turn has helped out the stability of
Right.
the tap room, which is in turn the business that we are pursuing. And it's a business that we love to be a part of. It's a community that we love to be a part of. And we're just grateful that it happened. And I'm just surprised that there hasn't been more awards. I don't know that everyone submits to these competitions, but I just know that there's good beer being made here. There's good beer being made everywhere, really. Like you can find really great beer anywhere you're at. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like it changed y'all's perspective or your trajectory at all? Like after winning 1 year and then 2 years, do you feel like y'all shifted at all, or have y'all really kind of still stayed course to where y'all are at and just continue to do what y'all do?
I don't think that it's changed anything except for like Saison, for instance. It's a hard sell, but because we won awards for Saison, people come here for it. I think people were coming here for it before because no one would make it because it's just so hard to sell.
Yeah.
But now I think that there's just more of a demand for it when we don't even have a Saison on tap right now, which tells you that it sells.
Yep.
Right.
But we make very small batches of it, like 3.5 barrels of Saison at a time. So I think that we kind of dug into production of that a little bit more as a result of winning. And I think that over time we've just eliminated a few styles that weren't beers that we really love to drink on a day-to-day basis. And we were making more of those types of styles before. Not that we don't like them or breweries that make them, but, we were doing like milds and English pale ales and Belgian blondes, and we just don't do those as much anymore. We just kind of focus on our lane, so to speak. And we love IPA. We're from the West Coast, so we like West Coast IPA. We do hazy. Actually, we're doing way more hazy about a year ago than today. We're doing way more West Coast as it stands. People are buying it like they used to buy it.
Yep.
At least here they are. And then we're doing lager, mostly Czech lagers, premium pale lagers, or German pilsners. And we would be doing like rice lagers and corn lagers and all different types of lagers before, but we really want to hone in on those two styles and do those really well, and then we might branch out. But yeah, and we've got about 5 different Saisons coming out in the next, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks. Which we need something
awesome.
We need something on the board, but
We'll be here for that.
Yeah,
We're
we wanna
definitely
be
going to
here.
grab some then to take on our trip with us.
Cool.
How do you strategize? So you're kind of focusing on your lanes, and I know this might be for Will, but like how do y'all, when y'all are sitting down talking about like what beers are coming up, how do y'all decide what y'all want to do? There's so many different things y'all could do. So how does that strategy look?
There's not really much strategy to it. With him
Surprising, that's a pretty consistent answer
It's
we
very
get.
consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me and him, it's like, well, we can brew once this week. What should we brew? And it takes us like 5 minutes or 5 seconds sometimes to figure out, like, well, let's do a dry hopped lager, or let's do a hazy. And we don't even talk about the hops, until we're going to dry hop it. So yeah, there's really not much thought that goes towards it. Even when like coming up with names and labels, like we have a kind of a template for our cans that we, it's kind of like a Jones soda approach.
It looks, kind of like a pop style. Yeah, I see it.
It's like an Instagram photo, square colored photo that's on every single can that we release. And it's pretty easy because we just have to swap out the name, the photo, the ingredients, and I could make a label in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we have a beer in the tank that needs a label, and I'm like, what do you want to call it? And Will looks at his phone and his list, and he's like, well, let's call it Creature Feature, which is what the next hazy is going to be called.
Gotcha.
This one's called 1994, and it's
Yeah, do y'all have stories behind him? Like, how does he
This one,
create
this
the
one,
names?
most of the names that Will comes up with are based off of either album names or song names.
Okay, gotcha.
And so sometimes it's a mystery as to where it actually came from. But this name, 1994, is the year I graduated high school, so it kind of dates me a little bit.
Oh, no,
It's
you don't
okay.
look
You
dated.
don't
Don't worry
date
about it. That's awesome. man.
So this weekend I'm going to California for my 30th high school reunion,
Okay.
and so I just named it 1994 to bring it out to the reunion.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's cool. You're gonna bring it out there. Nice. Do you have? So, and you already have a few people here in Oklahoma of like the beer community, people who own breweries. Do you have in California or other places? Do you have connections with breweries that you talk to often, or that's part of that community for you?
We have, most of our connections are here, just right here in Oklahoma City
Yeah.
or Tulsa. There's a few people we're connected to outside of Oklahoma. There's a friend of ours who owns a homebrew shop in California called Windsor Homebrew, but he was one of the guys we first brewed with when we were growing up in the beer world. He moved out there with his wife and opened up a couple different shops out there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's pretty much here.
Here. Okay. I didn't know because you're bringing some beer out, so I don't know if you're like going specifically to share it or like what
I have
that
a
looked like.
friend that I went to a very small school in California, but I have a friend, one of my best friends growing up. He started brewing in 1999, 11 years before I started brewing, and he's a pretty good brewer, except he's not in the brewing industry, and so he always appreciates when I bring beer out to
bring
him.
beer. Gotcha.
But I think it's very easy to find people that appreciate good beer in California, so
Yeah.
I'll just bring
Some.
bring a cooler, maybe
Yeah.
2 coolers of beer out and just pass it out to people I meet or people I interact with.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome. Get
I
your
love
story
that.
out. And
Yeah.
also, it'd be cool to see your friend be like, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
Always
I mean,
is.
honestly, that's the main reason we want to start a brewery and a tap room. What we want to do
just
is
sharing other
just
people's
to have our
beer,
friends be like, hey, try
friends,
this. Like, what do you think? And have like a space and an atmosphere for that to be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So you have the beer bus, you have a beer trailer, and a short bus. You
Yes.
said. So for you and reaching out into the Oklahoma community, are y'all still booking a lot of events where y'all travel to sell y'all's beer other places? What does that look like as event spaces go?
Yeah, so we do host a lot of events here, but we host more events away from the brewery, being that we started as the beer bus. We started at, events focused business, and then that kind of translated into the brewery tap room. So this week, for instance, we have 6 events away from the brewery.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
That's amazing.
So it's a combination of public events that we're going to be at. There's a farmer's market. There's 2 farmer's markets. And there's a house party.
Yeah.
There's a street festival. Actually, 2 festivals. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so it's really helpful, and it's, for me, I just feel like it's helped us not have to do distribution,
Yes.
because the beer that we would be distributing wholesale is going to be sold at these events retail. And we do distribute into about maybe 8 accounts in the state between here and Tulsa. So not very many. And I don't know. I don't think that we would expand that footprint very much. Possibly we have a 10-barrel system. We could expand it, but we just kind of want to stay away from that because it can really steal from your quality of life and
Yeah.
And quality of beer.
quality of beer. That's very true. So we want to run a business. We don't want it to run us. And so we're going to try and resist as long as possible and be content with what we have and focus on what we need versus what we want just in our personal lives.
Right.
So just kind of live simply and allow this to provide for our needs. And so I don't know where that's going to lead, but if it, going back to like that path of peace, if it feels peaceful, we'll do it. If not, then we'll resist it. as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an honest testament. I mean, having worked, and we talked about this previously, but like having worked for many large scale breweries, there should be more education taught out there for smaller breweries, whether you're wanting to scale up or like what you get into about,
How?
I think, the positives and negatives, not only on your business, but on like your ethos and what you wanted your business to be. We've seen plenty of breweries over the years kind of sell out their values because they have like 1 year of fast growth, and they're like, we're going to hop on distro, we're going to grow this so big.
And then
But
the
we've seen,
distro's driving them.
yeah, but you've also seen that too throughout the time where you have these big breweries, like the Ballast Point buyout was like such a big pivotal point of like a brewery sold for $1 billion. So then you had breweries follow suit with that, and then over the years you saw extended tap rooms or locations failed, sunk. They had to shrink back, and they're now reinvesting back into their community that they became so despondent from. And so I think it really is, and that's how, like you talked about community, which is strong for you, but that's how beer has always been. You know, people started going to taverns back in the day because taverns had fireplaces, and when people didn't have fireplaces and electricity, that's where you went to stay warm. That's also where you went to discuss business and learn what was going on in the community. And that strength is always going to be there if you pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an honest testament to how you guys wanted to do this. And it does work. It may take longer, but I think it is a long-term, more sustainable way to do it than,
Yeah.
you know, trying to gamble and play. Because when you lose hard.
Yeah, and the most important customer we have is the one that's closest to our front door. And that's the one that we have the most interaction with, that we can develop a relationship with. And they're the ones that are going to tell others about what's going on here. And so it's hard to have such a far reach because the story gets lost, the margin that you're making gets lost, and you lose yourself in that too because you're not aligned with your own values. If you wanted it to be something that was more focused on the development of place and the people that are within that place, and yeah, just being able to share and interact in a personal way, that goes away when you start to try and have this big reach for the idea of profit.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually not against the idea of distro, but it would just have to fit within our values.
Yeah.
And we might grow into that. And I just want to make sure that we're not compromising on something to make a little bit more revenue, but in the end it will cost us a lot more than.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. If you had a piece of advice to give your younger self, what would it be?
I don't know.
That's
Piece of
okay.
advice to give my inner self.
You seem to be pretty aware about
your
your
younger
direction,
self,
where you want to go
yeah.
in life. Which
My
I think
younger
is fair.
self.
Your
Yeah.
younger self.
That's a tough one.
We asked this to everybody, so
Yeah.
it's okay.
I
We asked this before even we started the podcast. We would travel, and we have a note thing in our phones
Yeah.
of people we've asked this question to back in starting in 2020. So you're good.
It doesn't
Whatever,
have to be
doesn't
heavy or
yeah.
serious, or if you don't have an
maybe
answer.
don't care so much about what other people think.
Yeah.
Because I growing up, I was that way. You know, a big time people pleaser, and maybe I just didn't know who I was as much as I do now. I wasn't as confident. I wanted to be everybody's friend. So maybe that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I will say this. I think you've achieved that
Yeah.
now. I think what you and Will and everybody that works at the Big Friendly definitely represents, like, we're doing our thing. We're being... I like the way of saying, like, being in our own lane, but it's like you're just making your own path and just like, yeah, this is this experience. So,
It's very authentic. I think that's what people can like genuinely see. Like when you say big friendly, it's like you're friendly. I'm sure the people behind your bar are friendly. We haven't met them yet, but I'm sure Will's friendly, your family's friendly, and I'm sure when y'all do the events, like the reason why you've been accepted by the community is because you feel like community to them as well, and so that's why you have that acceptance. So it's that genuineness that is so often lost. You can really feel and sense with the Big Friendly and the people who are running it and serving, and I'm sure the people inside of it too, the people who are coming in for beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very refreshing, I will say.
Yeah. It's what this community is built about. Craft
Yeah.
beer, I think, has always allowed anybody and everybody to be themselves unapologetically.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, we appreciate your time. It's been
Yeah.
so much fun. We just hit an hour and 5 minutes, and I think it's perfect because now all these wonderful people are filling the tap room, so it
Yeah.
gives us a chance to take
And
some
we just have
photos.
one last question.
Oh, you have one more?
Yeah.
Do
Great.
it.
What's coming up for you? What's next?
That's right.
Do you have any new releases coming out for this summer, or any big events you're excited
Other than
about?
the 5 saisons, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about.
Yeah, you're drinking beer that we're going to release tomorrow.
Very nice. It's very good.
1994. It's a West Coast IPA. We're going to release a hazy, I think, next week. And it's called Creature Feature.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got another fruit beer, Joe's Cherry Preserves, which we put 5 pounds per gallon of Montmorency cherries into that one, which it's a really good beer. We've made it. This will be our 4th time making it. So
What's the base for it? Is it like a golden ale? Are you basing it off a creek or?
so that one is a blend.
Okay.
We have a barrel fermented saison. We're going to blend with a clean beer we made
Oh, nice.
in the tank, and it doesn't really matter, honestly, because
Okay.
when you try these beers, it's very difficult to get the underlying characteristics of whatever beer that
It's
that
mainly
we
you can.
use.
It's
Yeah,
fruit forward
true.
for a reason.
Yeah. So.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
That's more inspired by the New Glarus fruit beers, if you've ever had any of their
Yes,
fruit
I
beers.
have. Wonderful.
So we can't access those from here, and those are beers that a lot of people appreciate, and so we did our own take on a similar type beer, but we do quite a few other fruits that New Glarus doesn't do,
Gotcha.
and we're, of course, we're very small and insignificant compared to New Glarus, who is
Yeah.
like, I mean, they've been in the scene for what, 3 decades or
Yeah.
more.
But then they did the similar thing though, where they stayed in their own lane. They're like, it's only Wisconsin.
That's right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, maybe that'll happen for us one day, but like I said, it'll have to be,
It'll have to be right. It'll have to fit.
it'll have to
Yeah.
fit right, feel right, and all that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like, I don't know what else we got coming up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds like y'all do a lot of events, so I didn't know if you did something special here. I don't know if the community had like a summer event or maybe a back to school thing or a
Yeah.
fall event or something
every
like that.
Friday night we do a farmer's market. So
Okay.
the street that you see out,
Mm-hmm.
a farmer's market in Oklahoma doesn't have as much fruit and vegetables as you would find like in
Pacific
Oregon.
Northwest, yeah.
But I feel like the one that we have here is pretty good, and it's really fun to be at the market because there's a lot of life happening. There's about 25 or 30 vendors down the street, and so that's every Friday, and then that's through October, and then starting I think at the end of August we have crit racing, bike racing,
Oh yeah.
and so it's essentially a mile-long course, and we've got amateur, and some like semi-pro riders that come out,
I
and
saw
there's
that on
fun.
y'all's
Yeah, we
Instagram.
did.
Yeah.
there's 4 different rides that happen, and that's every Tuesday, and that'll
Okay.
be I think going on for like 10 weeks starting at the end of August.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it around
Yeah.
here.
Gotcha.
So
Very cool. That's still very exciting. I mean, like you said, there wasn't much going on when you came here to Oklahoma, and honestly, like hearing the things that y'all are doing and the events that y'all go to, like there's so much more happening in this area now. So it's very cool. My family lives here, so it's cool to come back.
We're definitely
and
going to
visit
come to the
and-
Friday Farmers Market.
Yeah, and just like hang out, and we do enjoy the community and like being able to hang out with people. So it's very cool to hear what y'all are doing
Cool.
to impact that as well. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Joe.
Appreciate your time.
hey, thank you guys.
No problem.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
coming and hanging
Yeah.
out.